Okay, a lot of people are getting pretty confused on the way the new warband stuff is going to work. I'm going to explain in the best way I can to make it easy to understand. So currently there's a couple of differences with what's about to happen. In the game currently, warband buffs are only for the warband, meaning when you're in a warband raid, you receive these buffs. This is the first thing that's changing. If you actually look here, these new buffs that will be happening are across the game. At the bottom, it says room buffs are active during all types of activities. This has been construed to be like, does it mean all types of warband activities, just activities? Like, is it a translation problem? No, they actually do mean all activities. So these buffs will be across the entirety of the game, meaning that warband is something that you're going to want to be in, even if you don't want to participate in warband stuff, because now you're getting flat bonuses to every part of the game. Now, something else to keep in mind is this doubles down on this warband thing. The ancestral weapons have 8 spots, but you can only put in one of the spots yourself, meaning you need 8 individual players to max this out. What am I talking about? These are ancestral weapons, okay? You're going to put in ancestral weapons, which will give you options for bonus attributes, as you can pick the top 4 out of 8 weapons that have their bonus attributes, as you can see on the right, and these bonus stats go directly onto your character, and yes, they do influence the rest of the game as well. These are not bonus stats only for warband activities. These are for the entirety of your character. Something I do not know and do not have clarity on is, do these attributes raise your combat rating? I do not have the answer to that question, as typically 1 attribute equals 1 combat rating, so this could literally mean combat rating based upon your warband, which is another massive buff to warband or focus shift to warband, however you want to clarify it. So one other thing to keep in mind is only 4 out of 8 of these can be selected. So while 8 people will be the way to max it out, and we'll give you 8 options out of the 4, which is better than only having 4 options, you technically could max this out with only 4 people. At the bottom, it's going to say ancestral property hasn't been selected, because you can select one of the 8 different weapons as they have a ancestral property associated with them. The property is something that happens when something else happens. The thing that's something else is called the Invocation Gear. This is something you're actually going to be equipping onto your character itself, like a piece of gear. I'm assuming it's going to go up here somewhere in your resonance, which will trigger the ancestral property from the ancestral weapon that you put inside of the tableau. So once again, to slow down to explain this, each one of these 8 spots has a property. You select one of these 8 spots, that is your property. Then you have the invocation, which is the triggering of that property. So for instance, if let's say this spot right up here you select because it has, let's say it says deal 20,000 damage. Okay, just as a thing it does in AoE, a 20,000 AoE damage when something else happens. Now, in order to proc to something else, you're going to equip the Invocation Gear, which will drop from doing these warband-related activities. You will equip this into a gear spot, and that will decide when that 20,000 AoE damage triggers. So it could say after dealing a dash. It could say trigger property after dealing a dash. It could say trigger the property after hard CCing somebody. It could say trigger the property after a 2% chance when dealing damage. And then it will trigger that property of which you have selected back in the tableau. So what this means is, because of this, you only need 1 person in 1 warband if all you want is a property to get that bonus. You don't really have to have a warband crew. You can just put 1 in. But if you want the full bonuses of the attributes, you're going to need 4 people. Okay, so just to clarify on that as well. Something else we do not know is, I do not know the list of properties or invocations, and I do not know the strength of them. They could be as weak as something like our Reforged bonuses that don't really matter, where you have a 2% chance to do something, but they could also be as strong as the 6-piece sets that we get from full set pieces. So what this means is warbands are now a couple things. Warbands are important to at least be a part of, if even casually, because of passive bonuses. Warbands are also now the in-game focus, because they could have major bonuses, which we don't know yet, but we know for a fact there will be new flat objective bonuses like attributes, as well as bonus percentage stats from the buffs that will go everywhere outside of just the warband, meaning you must go into a warband to benefit you outside of a warband. And that's before we even continue to talk about helicore raids, which are staying in the game. So it's just adding more importance there. One other thing I do not know if all of these stats and passives, etc., have the 66% PvP negation that all the other ones do in the game. If you didn't know, things like gems have a 66% nerf to them in PvP in order to make PvP more balanced. And I do not have the information available in front of me. And I did ask, was not able to get clarity on whether or not this 66% is part of both the buffs from Warband as well as the ancestral properties. I'm sure this is something we'll get clarity on soon, or once the game actually puts this update in it. What this means for you, the player, is now is the best time to find friends. At least 4 friends. You're looking for 4 friends, basically one good party. And then from there, you can raise the ceiling all the way to 8 in order to give you guys a better chance at having higher stats. But you need at least 4 good players. And this is the way the game is going. So this is now becoming more of a party game. I just wanted to give some clarity on this, as I've seen some people getting this confused.